Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Cover 2 podcast. I am Nick Nenad.
And I'm Jared Smith.
And guys, we have an interesting show for you today. Normally, Jared and I would be super excited to talk about the NFL playoffs. It's week 2 in the NFL playoffs, the Divisional Round. We had Super Wild Card Round last weekend. And so normally we'd be super excited. You know, we got the Titans playing this week, the Green Bay Packers playing this week for the first time. But I think, as you guys know, our two teams both embarrassed us this weekend. And so we're going to get to that. We're going to start the podcast with that so we can get all the happiness and all the actual real discussion a little bit later in the show. The way this is going to go is we are pretty much going to discuss the teams that were eliminated first on this podcast. We're going to discuss what they need to do in the offseason, how they can fix, a first-round playoff exit, because some teams we absolutely expected to leave in the playoffs, and some teams, including our own, we did not. So we'll get into that, and then at the end of the podcast, we'll predict and preview what will happen sort of quickly, what will happen in divisional round weekend in the playoffs. So, Jared Smith, we're going to start with none other than the Dallas Cowboys, because they had the craziest ending to a football game maybe we've ever seen in playoff history, realistically, besides maybe a Hail Mary or something like that. As you guys know, Dallas Cowboys ran out of time. Blame the ref, blame Dak, blame Mike McCarthy, blame somebody. But the Cowboys ran out of time without a legitimate shot at winning their playoff game and getting one more chance to score a touchdown. So, Jared Smith, give me your thoughts on that moment, what was going through your head, everything when the Cowboys ran out of time against the San Francisco 49ers.
I mean, let me first say that I'm glad we're doing this podcast a couple of days after, we're recording on a Thursday, because if we were doing this on a Monday, the day after, I'd probably be a little intoxicated and I'd probably say some things that I might regret. So, I like yourself, got a couple of days to digest this loss. And while it still hurts, it's still an open wound. We're still in, the first phase of recovery. I have had an opportunity to read a lot of articles, listen to a lot of reporters, obviously go back and watch certain parts of the game and try to understand where this whole thing unraveled for Dallas, right? And when I look at it, I have to look at the top and I have to look at coaching, right? Obviously, the players are the ones on the field trying to execute what the coaches want. But at the end of the day, it is the coach's jobs to get the players ready. And I don't feel like this coaching staff did that. I think the Kyle Shanahan and the entire 49ers coaching staff completely outcoached Dallas from the very beginning, right? The 49ers opening drive, when they got the ball, they marched down the field. I didn't get to see it live, but I believe it was like a 60 or 70-yard, drive that ended with the touchdown. And it was like an opening statement, like, yeah, we're here to play. Like, it doesn't matter that we're here in Dallas. You guys can have home field advantage. You guys can have the crowd. You can have all that. The 49ers literally ran down the Cowboys' throat on the very first drive and sent a statement like, we are here to play ball. Like, try to match our game. And Dallas simply could not do that. I believe their first touchdown was scored in the second quarter. It was a nice pass from Dak Prescott to Amari Cooper. But realistically, the 49ers controlled the ball, right? They had the ball for, I believe, 3 times the amount that the Cowboys did. And it just seemed like Dallas never really found a rhythm. The 49ers did exactly what they try to do to every single team. They run the football. They keep the other team's offense off the field, right? And they try to protect Jimmy G from having to make a play, right? It's like run, play action, get Jimmy G out of the pocket, give him multiple options, whether he wants to throw it short, throw it intermediate, or use his legs and run the football. Like that seems to be the 49ers recipe for success. And obviously, it's not only worked throughout the regular season, it worked against the Cowboys this Sunday. Now, that's not like a surprise. Dallas should have been ready for that. I just don't think they have the physicality or the mental wherewithal to get through 4 quarters of a game against the 49ers. So I do want to get into the last play. But before I do that, I actually want to hear your thoughts on this game, because
Sure.
I have a couple different perspectives and I can go in multiple directions with this. But I want to hear an outsider's perspective, someone who isn't a Cowboys fan. Like, what did you think about that final drive that Dallas had? Because first of all, they stopped the 49ers on 4th and 1, right? And then the 49ers ended up getting a false start penalty, which backed them up to 4th and 6, which made them punt.
Yeah.
Right, to even give Dallas a chance. Dallas did a great job of driving the ball down the field. But talk to me about that final play, what you thought about it, and as a non-Cowboys fan, if you liked it or not.
Well, when you look at this game overall, it was kind of what I expected. A lot of times, and Jared, you know this, the Cowboys come from behind. It tends to be in their nature to be losing in games. And sometimes they win them. Most of the time they actually win them. But a lot of times they lose them. And the big games, they've seemed to lose in that way. This game reminded me a lot of the Cardinals game against when you guys played us. I mean, even literally the score was almost the exact same most of the time. And so I expected the 49ers to run the ball because their quarterback sucks. So they have to run the ball. They have one of the best offensive lines in football. They have maybe the best offensive lineman in Trent Williams in football. So why not use that guy to your advantage? And I expected the Cowboys to not come out great because they just have not finished the season that great. They beat the bad teams by a ton, and they tended to not play against good teams very well this season. So, but getting down to the final drive, first of all, the game should have ended on 4th and 1. Incredibly bad false start, both on the offensive line and Jimmy G himself. But the Cowboys get a chance, and that happens in football sometimes. As far as the last play call goes, there was a couple things that could have gone absolutely 100% right for the Cowboys, and none of them did. I don't mind throwing the ball over the middle or even running because, as Mike McCarthy said after the game, he said they were playing sideline defense. So what are you going to do? Throw an interception, throw it out of bounds, whatever. And there was still, 20-something seconds left on the clock, right? There was enough time to throw a play that didn't necessarily have to go out of bounds, or run a play and then spike the ball. What I thought was wrong was I thought Dak should have slid earlier, and he's got to know that. He's got to know how much time's on the clock. Because if he slides earlier, number one, the line doesn't have as much time to run. The referee behind him doesn't have as much time to run up to the snap to get the ball set. And the Cowboys just have more time on the clock in general. So not only are they closer to where the original play happened, but they have more time on the clock, literally. And also I thought that realistically, the referee needs to do a goddamn better job at figuring out the spot. I understand the NFL, you have to spot the ball. You can't just take the ball and spot it wherever you want and do all that. And that's what the Cowboys did. And I think actually in some ways, it screwed them over trying to spot it themselves, right? Because it's like they didn't know where the spot was, right? They're just trying to get their play done. Referee needed to do a better job on that play. And I think Dak just needed to slide a little bit earlier. I don't hate the play call. I don't hate the actual play itself from Dak. I just think he needs to have better wherewithal, slide earlier, and the ref needs to do a better job. Realistically, what I would have done is probably just tried to get out of bounds. Even if they're playing sideline defense, you just figured out. And at that point, if you have to spike it, you spike it, right? And you deal with the consequences. Because I think Dak has a good enough arm to throw a Hail Mary from where that ball was originally spotted. So it wasn't necessary to get to the 25 instead of the 35, or get to the 28 instead of the 33, right? Like, it doesn't matter. So I thought execution by Dak, I blame him for that last play realistically, and I blame the referee. I don't blame the coaching staff as much for that last drive and last play. I blame Dak and the referee. As far as the game goes, like every other Cowboys game this year that they lost, I blame 100% on the Dallas Cowboys coaching staff and number one, Mike McCarthy. Now, Jared, I want to ask you really quickly. We look at what happened in this game, and obviously they ran out of time, and we don't know if they would have threw a Hail Mary and all that stuff. But your thoughts, like going into this game, obviously you're a fan, but did you expect the Cowboys to come out and play better than this? I know that's a tough question to ask, but like, did you really expect them to go blow out the 49ers, or did you kind of expect this to be a tight game, and so the ending wasn't as surprising as you thought?
No, I thought it was going to be tight all the way through. Listen, the key to success, like in football, doesn't matter where you are. If you can run the ball, control the clock, and you have a good defense, right? The 49ers don't have a great defense, but if they have a good defense, you're going to be able to stay in any ball game, right? And that's what the 49ers have literally built their entire success around, like I said earlier. So, no, I thought this was going to be a close game. Really, Dallas lost this game in the first half when they came out completely flat. And it was interesting to me that a day after, in one of Mike McCarthy's press conferences, he said that in the Cowboys locker room, before they came out for the game, I think they were like doing their pregame prayer or something like that, he could feel the nervousness from his players, right? And I think it's one thing to be anxious, right? To be like, man, like I've got some butterflies in my stomach, I've got some jitters. That's okay, that's human, right? But he literally said he felt the nervousness from his players, which to me makes it seem like you did not have your players ready, right? Because if you are nervous going into any type of situation, that means that you're not prepared. If you are prepared, right, you are ready to go, then you should not be nervous about stepping into anything that you do. You can be anxious, like I said, you can have butterflies in your stomach. That is completely 100% human. But if you are like nervous and scared, that means that you are not ready. You are not prepared, right? You do not think you go out and execute your job, whether it's an individual player or as an entire team. And in this case, it seems like it was the entire team because Dallas came out and got smacked in the mouth right away. So, like I said, I thought this game was going to be close, and I was not surprised necessarily by the score. I think I was surprised by Dallas having 17 and San Francisco having 23. I could have seen it the other way around where Dallas had 23, San Francisco had 17. Sure. I did not expect Dallas to blow this team out at all. I thought it was going to be a lot closer than it was. Well, so, I will say, and
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm happy that I asked you to give your thoughts on that final play, because I did not, as most people are going to call me a biased Cowboys fan.
Sure.
I'm okay, just like you are, with that final play and the fact that Dak Prescott ran the football. In Mike McCarthy's press conference, he also mentioned that Dallas initially had a pass play call. Dak Prescott checked into a draw run himself because he saw the defense. But here's the thing, and you're right. I don't blame him for checking into the run. Sure. I blame him for exactly what you said, not sliding earlier. The moment he got to the 30, he should, not to say that he's going to, completely have his eyes on the clock, because obviously he's looking around for defenders and making sure he doesn't get hit and trying to protect himself. But you have to know at the start of that play, okay, there's 14 or 15 seconds left and we have 0 timeouts, right? Yeah. They were able to run that play. Apparently they've run this play in practice before. Apparently they practice this play every single week. So they practice not only the start of the play, the execution, the finish, and also they supposedly practice handing the football to the referee so that the referee can spot the ball and they can get on with another play. Well, if you practice that on a weekly basis, that needs to translate into a game situation, and clearly that did not. So you are 1,000% right. Dak Prescott should have slid earlier, which would have given them probably 2 or 3 more seconds. So regardless of the offensive line being slow to get to the line, regardless of the referee being slow, bumping into Dak and bumping into the center, that still would have given Dallas 1, 2, possibly even 3 seconds to get off another play. The last thing I'll say before I hand it back to you, one of the main reasons why I will agree with this play and why I'm not going to come back and say, I wish it would have done something else. Do you know what the percentage is of completing a Hail Mary? And in my opinion, at least, a Hail Mary is 45 to 50 yards away from the end zone.
I don't. No, I do not.
I do know that it's less than 10%, and if I'm not mistaken, it's less than 5%. So for all those people out there that are saying, oh, Dallas should have just, thrown 2 Hail Marys, like taken that 15 seconds, thrown a Hail Mary. If it was incomplete, they would have had another play. My thinking is, I'm actually with the coaching staff on this particular thing. Why would you want to run a play that is less than 5% chance of being completed? Why not get the ball to the 30 or the 25? Like you mentioned, Dak Prescott does have a good enough arm. He's not Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, but he has a good enough arm. So if you're at the 25 or the 30, that is, to me, increasing your percentages of completing a pass in the end zone. So I'm literally okay with Kellen Moore calling the pass play, right, in the huddle. I'm okay with Dak Prescott checking out of that pass play to get into that quarterback draw. Dak Prescott did not do his job in sliding early enough. And then between Dak Prescott and the center, Tyler Biadasz, they both did not do a good enough job, or they didn't do their job in handing the ball to the referee. If those executions happen at the end, Dallas at least has a chance for one more play, and who knows what happens from there.
Yeah, well, no, poor execution all the way through. Again, that absolutely should have been a Spike. He was only about a second and a half behind spiking the ball. Like, he has 3 more seconds, right? And I know that's a lot, but if he has 2.5 more seconds, they spike the ball in 1 second, and nobody's going to complain, right? I think, again, it was poor execution. Dak went too far, and then they didn't do what you're supposed to do legally in the NFL to get a spike off. They tried to do it themselves. They panicked. They weren't ready, and that's why they lost. And that goes down to the coaching staff. That goes down to the quarterback, and that goes down to the center, like you said, the most important people on the offensive side of the ball. Now, Jared, moving away from this game, because we do need to move on with the podcast, but for the Cowboys, they started the year so great, right? And a lot of people, including myself, including yourself, thought they might be a Super Bowl team this year. But as the season went on, it sort of turned into, okay, well, maybe this team isn't a Super Bowl team. Maybe they're going to be a really good playoff team, and maybe they'll advance around, right? And then realistically, the last month, it kind of seemed like, well, maybe they'll get eliminated, right? What has to happen with this team next year to get them to that next level? You have the CeeDee Lambs, Amari Coopers, Ezekiel Elliott's, Tony Pollard's, Dak Prescott. You have a defense that now has stars like Trayvon Diggs and Micah Parsons on it, right? Young guys. What does Dallas need to do next year to, one, advance in the playoffs, because they haven't done that for a while, and two, get to legitimate Super Bowl contendership?
I'll lay out 3 things, and I'll make it pretty quick because you're right. We do need to go on, and I'll start from the top. It starts with the coaching. It starts with leadership, and I'm talking about in-game coaching, right? There were multiple scenarios during the season throughout different games where, whether it was, not calling a timeout at the end of a half or towards the end of a game to either ice the kicker or, to potentially give your offense one more chance to get the ball at the end. You know what I mean? There were certain scenarios where, whether it was Mike McCarthy, whether it was Kellen Moore, they didn't seem to have that sense of urgency to, for lack of a better word, step on the other team's throat. They were content with, going into a halftime with a 3-point lead, instead of potentially using your extra timeouts to stop the other team, get the ball back, and maybe have a couple plays to get into field goal position and get an extra free 3 points. You know what I mean? It's little things. It seemed like they were too content at certain times this season to want to push the envelope. And to me, I don't care who you're playing, right? All these guys in the league get paid, right? No one wants to get embarrassed. So you want to try to score as many points at all times possible. And there were just certain times in the year where Dallas, to me, did not take advantage and exert all of their resources, right? You should never end a game or end a half with having multiple timeouts left and certain, you know what I mean? So that's one thing. I think in-game coaching, starting with the head coach, Mike McCarthy, all the way down, needs to improve. Number two, I think the offensive line needs to improve. I think this team has hung their hat for far too long on the successes of the 2016 to 2018 Dallas Cowboys teams, where they arguably had the best offensive line in all of football. And it was not a question, right? Guess what? Yes, they still have Zach Martin in All-Pro. They still have Tyron Smith in All-Pro. Lyle Collins at right tackle is still very good. Their center position and their left guard is very weak. Dallas also, I believe, either led the league or they were top 2 or 3 in having the most different starting offensive line combinations to go into a game. So the consistency and the cohesiveness was not there with an offensive line. And while most people, if you don't follow football as much, maybe you don't think that's as big of a deal. Guess what? Consistency within the offensive line, the talking to each other, knowing where this person is going to be, that is key to keeping your quarterback upright. And clearly, that was something that Dallas could not do this season. The third and final thing to me is clearing up the penalties. And that may actually be number 1 on the list, because over the last 2 years, Dallas has led the league in penalties against them. So to me, that is across the board. That starts with the coaching staff, but then that also goes to the players as well, because the coaching staff can teach you the right technique, can teach you the proper way to block, the proper way to tackle, right? All those things. But at the end of the day, that is execution on the players, right? Jumping offsides. Randy Gregory had 2 offsides penalties in the first quarter. I believe Micah Parsons also had a neutral zone infraction, which is basically an offsides, either in the first quarter or the second quarter as well. They had multiple holding penalties, specifically in this game against the 49ers. They totaled 14 penalties in this super wildcard game against the 49ers for over 100 yards. You take away 3 or 4 of those penalties. I'm not saying all of them, because clearly I don't think any team has ever gone through an entire game without getting at least 1 penalty. But you take away 2 of those holding calls and 1 of those offsides, and I legitimately think that Dallas, the outcome is different, right? So to me, it is about the consistency or lack thereof of Dallas and not being disciplined. So those are the 3 things for me. It's the in-game coaching, it's fixing the offensive line, and it is the discipline to play better and not have so much garbage, as in yellow flags, on the field.
I completely agree with you on all of those things. I would have said the same exact thing. I would have maybe stressed penalties first, and then but you know what's funny is everything you kind of
that's what I said. You can put that first if you want.
Everything you kind of said all has to do with each other. Most of the penalties are happening on the offensive line, right? Like the coaching has to do with not making your team disciplined, right? And then obviously literally the penalties is the thing. So yeah, I mean, I think, again, star players everywhere. So what went wrong? Well, it's decision making, it's execution, right? And big mistakes like penalties. All right, Jeb, I gave you that time because I wanted to get myself mentally prepared and not cry about talking about my Arizona Cardinals. You know, I'm not going to get into the game because number one, it's going to haunt my dreams forever being there live. And number two, we got our asses kicked. So it doesn't matter what we did in that game, realistically. And it doesn't matter how the Rams played, because I'll talk about that when in our preview when they're playing the Buccaneers. You know, obviously super disappointed. You go into a playoff game, you know, against a division rival that we'd already beaten, and you expect it to be close because, you know, we beat them pretty bad, and then they kind of beat us up, but it wasn't the worst loss ever, right? And you're like, okay, well, round 3, right? What's going to happen? And we were one of the best road teams, maybe the best road team in the NFL this year. You know, we go in there, everything goes right prior to the game. Everybody's healthy. J.J. Watt's back, right? You know, I secured tickets that weren't too expensive, right? everything's going well, right? And then just to have us absolutely implode and just look like absolute garbage the whole game. It's extremely disappointing. And let me tell you guys real quick about SoFi Stadium, okay?
Please give us the experience of being there. That's what I want to know.
That was the best thing, okay? That was the best thing. Number one, it's the coolest place I've ever been to in my life. Okay, it is the coolest place, and I'm so glad the Super Bowl's there this year, because that's what the Super Bowl should be. I mean, it's a crazy stadium. What's weird too is it's an indoor stadium, but it's outdoors. Like everywhere you walk, you're outdoors. But inside the stadium, literally, it's indoor. Excuse me, talking too much.
So wait, like the concessions, like when you're walking around, like you're technically outside, like there's no roof above you?
Well,
give me some more details.
Yeah, pretty much it's like there's always just open air. There's not like you didn't walk through doors to get into the stadium. You just always walked in from the outside, and then you're still kind of outside the whole time. It's interesting. Besides when you're in the stands, literally, you're like outside. It's really, really cool. You go to a bar on the left concourse and you're outside. And you're like, the environment.
I'm sure you were at the bar a lot.
Oh yeah, especially in the second half and near halftime.
Yeah.
And every other part of the game. But I'll say this too: the environment itself, they made it's just loud the whole time. Like even in warm-ups, it was loud. Like the crowd, they did something to raise the acoustics. Clearly, like I don't think Rams fans that have been fans of this team for like 4 years are that loud. Okay, it was very, very loud, and especially since you're not really saying anything as an opposing fan when we're on offense, you really hear that stuff, and it is loud. So experience-wise, absolutely phenomenal. Watching your team get their ass kicked, not good. Also, the people I went with were all Rams fans, and they gave me so much shit during this game. It was unreal. Okay, everybody around me was nice, but my friends who were sitting in a section over the left were not nice during the game. But yeah, so, experience-wise, NFL playoffs, can't miss it. I would do it again. I'd go next year. I don't care how good our team is, or how good our team is. I'd still like to do a game in SoFi, with the Cardinals playing. As far as execution goes, terrible. Now, Jared, from an outsider's perspective, give me your thoughts on this. I think it was one of the few games you actually were able to sit down and watch fully, right, Sue? This Monday Night Football broadcast. So give me your thoughts. Also, I got to see they had Warren G and Montel Jordan perform at halftime. Warren G, like I've said in the past,
that's dope.
Used to be my football coach when I was like 10 years old. So I got to see Coach perform at halftime. That made me a little bit happier.
Let's go.
It's so funny, dude. It's so funny because I'm not trying to name drop, but like Warren G has never seemed like a celebrity to me. He was like my coach for 2 years. Like I didn't care who he was. He was just like real nice guy. I knew his sons, and obviously his son, now playing in the NFL and all that stuff too is pretty cool. But that was probably number one bright spot of the whole thing. That little concert they did at halftime.
Listen, I gotta say, I'm glad that you can take some of those bright moments, because it doesn't seem like there were many for you, other than continuing to keep yourself hydrated at the concession stand and then seeing that halftime. Other than that, I don't know how you, number one, weren't getting heckled the entire time by other fans, not just your friends.
I was.
I can't imagine that scenario right there. I thought it was bad enough for myself watching the Cowboys game on my own couch, watching my own TV, but to be in an opposing team's stadium and your team getting their ass kicked by a division rival, I think you take the cake, sir. So I will give you that. Congratulations for that. But for me, I didn't get a chance to see the entire game. I saw more of the second half than anything, but by that time the game was over. And I think it's similar to the Cowboys in this sense. The Cardinals did not come to play early. And in a playoff game, in a win or go home scenario, you have to get out of the gates fast. It's like a sprinter running a 100-yard meter, right? Like you have to start fast. if you start slow and you get behind the 8 ball, or you dig yourself even a tiny hole, everything else becomes that much more important, right? So if you go down 7 or 10 or 14 points, right, that next holding call, that next defensive pass interference call, that next offsides penalty, that next any type of mistake is enhanced and magnified that much more, right? So if you are not within a, one score game, or if you are not leading, any type of penalty or mistake is going to come back to haunt you even more than you would think. So to me, the clear and obvious mistake was when Kyler Murray was about to get sacked in the end zone and literally underhand tossed the ball.
That happened right in front. That happened right in front of me, dude. That happened right in front of where I was sitting.
I can't. I would have left. I would have left. There's no way that I could have stayed at that.
I think I did get up.
Irregardless of who I went there with. I would have heard home. I don't care. I would have. Sorry, guys, I'm out. I love y'all. Y'all can bash me. I would have shut my phone off. I wouldn't have looked at Twitter. There's no way. I would have just went home. That play reminded me, and you can probably speak to this more so than I can, because you clearly, as a fan, watched every Cardinals game. But Kyler Murray was in that same situation earlier in the season. It was a home game. Kyler Murray was once again being sacked in the end zone. He ended up throwing the ball out of bounds, and if they called it a safety or what they did, but the thing is, like, Kyler Murray, like, you have to learn from that scenario, right? Like fool me once, shame on you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you learn from your mistakes. He's human. You're going to make mistakes. I get it, but he's already been in that scenario once this year. He found himself in that same situation again, and this time he underhand throws the ball up in the air so high, or high enough, a Rams defender is able to pick it off just before it hits the ground, and it turns into a 2-yard interception return for a touchdown. Like, that was the final nail in the coffin for the Cardinals. So to me, in a sense, kind of similar to Dallas, they came out and started slow. And when you are playing against a team like the Rams that have the superstars that they have in Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald, and they get to just sit there and tee off, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, no. And by the way, Jared, I was at that game too, where that other play.
Okay, so yeah. maybe you were just starting to come to the realization that you are bad luck and that you need to keep your ass at home.
Maybe.
I'm thinking that
I tried to go. Here's the thing, though. One was a home game, one was a road game. I don't know what to do. Right?
You stay at home, or you go to a bar. You might be. I'm gonna have.
That'll be me for the next couple weekends. Because
on Twitter, I'm gonna reach out to the Cardinals, and I'm gonna say, listen, if you ever see Nick Nenad trying to buy seats, block him, deny him, for your own sake. You're giving your team a better chance to win. Keep Nenad at home or at a bar.
Sure.
Near a stadium.
Yeah, we were pretty good when I wasn't going to games too. It's always funny. Plus, the guys that went with too were all Rams fans, and they'd been 4-0 during the season going to games too. So I definitely botched that. I botched that statistic wise. Getting into the offseason, obviously, and looking what the Cardinals need to do. I think a lot of Cardinals fans are freaking out on social media, man. Like, calm down, okay? We have literally gotten better every single year since we drafted Kyler Murray. And we made the playoffs this year when a lot of people thought we'd get 4th place in the NFC West. Mind you, the number 1 division in football. There's literally 3 football teams that made it from that division, and 2 of them are still in the playoffs. So, again, we beat the 49ers twice, who advanced past, what is it, 3 other teams in the NFC, right? Including ourselves. We beat the Rams once. We beat the Cowboys. We played really close to the Packers, right? Come on. Like, calm it down, all right? Here's the thing, though. We have a lot of free agents this year, okay, coming up, including Chandler Jones, including DJ Humphries. Kyler's in his last year, so this will be a big year, and it will be interesting to see what the team does. Also, there's a lot of increased salaries. I think DeAndre Hopkins' salary jumps like $8 million or something like that. He deserves it, so I have no problem with that. But we We kind of botched the years where he, we were using him for less money, right? And so, there's a lot of free agents. We need to decide what we need to do at receiver. Besides Hopkins, we need to fix up the offensive line. Defensively, we definitely can be better. We definitely kind of acted like we were a good defense, but realistically, we were pretty average, right? Especially in the run defense category. And looking at management, right? Okay, again, Cliff Kingsbury has gotten better every single year with the Arizona Cardinals, but he does have that statistic that's very worrying, that he does finish seasons very, very poorly. If you look back in college, it's against your division opponents, right? And now when you look at it, the NFL, it's the nitty-gritty games. It's the games against your division opponents in the NFC West as well. He's not playing well against them. So I give Cliff Kingsbury one more year. You need to prove to not only the media, but your fans and to, the upper management of the Cardinals, that you can have a more consistent season of winning. And it's not 7-1, 5-2, Hail Marys to win games, and then losing at the end of the season, right? So Cliff Kingsbury, he's fine. He'll be back next year. The guy's gotten better. There's no way you can fire a coach for going from 5 wins to the playoffs in 2 years. Like, come on, stop, right? And we literally, if we don't lose that last game of the season, we win the NFC West. So it's not like we were the San Francisco 49ers who are slipping into the playoffs at 9-7. We almost were the NFC West champs, and literally almost the 2 seed. So calm it down. And as far as people talking about the general manager, what's he supposed to do? He literally added throughout the season. He added Zach Ertz. He brought people in this season like James Conner. That was, if Jonathan Taylor doesn't exist, is potentially the MVP and easily the number 1 running back in the NFL. So, minus Derrick Henry obviously getting hurt and stuff like that. But so everybody needs to kind of slow it down. Kyler has 1 more year on his rookie contract. Cliff Kingsbury, give him 1 more year. The general manager has a lot to work on, Steve Keim, in the offseason. Draft well, figure it out. I think this Cardinals team will be back and better than ever next year. Okay, we'll lose some key players. It might not be the best, but Kyler's getting better and better. Also, really quickly speaking on Kyler, and then we'll move on. He needs to stop with the whole I only win stuff, because you don't. You literally played the worst game of your life in many of the biggest games of this season, and in your biggest game ever in the playoffs, you look like complete trash, and a lot of people wanted you to be cut. So Kyler needs to slow it down with all the confidence in winning these big games, because he has not done it, and I think he needs to humble himself a little bit. Right? You are a fantastic talent. You were an MVP candidate for half the year, but guess what? And also, keep up the health too. He's starting to get hurt every single year now. Maybe the size of the NFL is getting to him. So a lot to look at next year. I have no problem with this season, though. Okay, you made the playoffs. Nobody expected to. They made it really, really fun for me to watch every Sunday, and they made me go and go to a playoff game, because I really did think this team would win. So
I gotta say this really quick. You made some great points, and I'm glad that you were able to humble yourself as a Cardinals fan. I think it's tough sometimes. When we come on this show, all we want to do is praise our teams, and it's tough to sit there and really be critical of your own teams, right? And so proud of you for doing that, especially after you were literally in the stands and saw that ass whooping live and in person and in color. So that is, I'm proud of you for coming on the show today and having the guts to still talk about your team, right? And talk straight. So thank you. I will say this, and this is something that I started to think about the moment the Cardinals started to kind of slip, right? Because the first half of the season, the Cardinals were clearly the best team, right? Yeah. It was wow, the Cardinals might go undefeated. They're going to run the table in the NFC. They're going to have first round bye, all this stuff. The Cardinals reminded me of the 2020 Pittsburgh Steelers. Remember, they started 11-0,
That's very good.
right? And then all of a sudden they took a major dip. Now, maybe they took more of a dip than the Cardinals did this year, but still, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you obviously want to start the season well, and every team would love to start the season 11-0. But I think it's more so the consistency week in and week out of saying, okay, even if we don't have our best game, even if we take a loss here and there, like these are our principles. This is the way we play. We do not, shy away from that. We do not get out of that kind of realm. And I think the Cardinals like peaked too early, right? Like we always say it, and whether you're a reporter, you're an analyst, you're us two Cover Two podcast here. We say this all the time. It's not necessarily the best team that's going into the playoffs. It's the team that is like playing the best, if you follow what I'm saying. So a team may not have the best talent, right? They may be going up against an opponent that has better talented players, but as a team, as a whole, if that team is hot, right? If they are gelling, if they are firing on all cylinders, that team is probably going to fare a lot better than just the on paper talented team, if you follow what I'm saying. So I think the Cardinals peaked way too early. I think Dallas almost did the same thing. Dallas at one point in the regular season, like won 6 straight games in a row, and then kind of had a roller coaster season from there. The consistency week in, week out was not there with both of our teams, right? We saw that from the Green Bay Packers. We saw that from the Tennessee Titans, who lost arguably the best running back in all of football, and Derrick Henry, who they're getting back, by the way, right? We saw that from the teams that are still in it right now, or at least most of those teams. And so I think that's a big thing that both of our teams need to look at going into next season is the consistency week in and week out. Yes, obviously, like I said, it's great to go on those crazy long winning streaks, but how are you playing towards the end of the season? I think that matters a lot as far as, the mojo and going into the playoffs with the right mentality.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And with our team, though, there are obviously with our head coach, there's that sketchy statistic that he literally has done that almost his entire career as a top tier head coach. So again, it's kind of a prove it year for a lot of people next year, right? It's a prove it year for Cliff Kingsbury, for our general manager, Steve Keim, and for Kyler Murray. So I'm interested to see, but we don't need to blow it up. Like I hate what they did to Brian Flores in Miami. Like you're building a culture. Obviously, the players love Cliff. Like nobody has a problem with Cliff. It's just, it hasn't worked out. There's been key injuries at certain points. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins. Like we have DeAndre Hopkins. Maybe we don't lose some of those games near the end of the season, and we end up getting to the NFC West. And there, we play the Eagles, or we play the Cowboys, and we have a little bit easier game, and then we win that playoff game, right? And then nobody cares that we lose the next round because we're playing Tom Brady or we're playing Aaron Rodgers. So it's like that's how it's going to kind of work, right? Like if the Rams would have had to play the 49ers in the first round and they lose, everybody's going to be like, Stafford sucks. Sean McVay should be fired, right? So it does have to do with like the regular season really does matter, okay? And like the seeding does matter and who you play in the playoffs does matter. So calm it down. We played a team that we historically have not beaten a lot in the Rams, in Sean McVay. It's been once, literally once in the last 4 years. So again, bad matchup in the playoffs. If we play a couple other teams in the playoffs, we probably fare better. So, and nobody's complaining about trying to fire everybody. But yeah, so very, very interesting. All right, sure. Steelers, we expected them to lose, and they did, and they lost by a lot. We're not going to talk about the game, obviously, because the Chiefs are playing the Bills, and that's going to be a great game this weekend. Your thoughts on what the Steelers need to do? Here's the question, okay, moving forward with them. Should they go with Mason Rudolph, a guy that's been in their system for many, many years, that has had some success, or should they spend the big money and maybe go after Russell Wilson or maybe go after another top-tier quarterback? Like, what do you think is the smart move? Maybe bend the salary cap, screw over your team in the future to go for a big gun like maybe Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, or do you think they should go with the Mason Rudolph or draft him?
There's only one right answer here. Well, I guess two, because you just threw in that draft somebody. If you want to draft someone that you feel is going to be your future for the next 10, 15 years, I'm good with that. They haven't had the best success. Obviously, they found Big Ben, but since then, they have not really found anyone to be Ben's backup and or future successor. So maybe in the draft, that is not their best way of going about it. But you throw all your eggs in the basket for an Aaron Rodgers, for a potential Russell Wilson if he does not end up staying in Seattle, or if Deshaun Watson's case, if that clears up and he becomes a viable option again, then obviously I think that the Steelers have to look at that as well. It's interesting because Mike Tomlin, in his post-game press conference, I'm not sure if it was right after the game against the Chiefs or the day after when they were back in Pittsburgh, he said that one of his number one goals in this offseason and going forward was getting a quarterback that was more mobile. If you look at the current roster at quarterback, Mason Rudolph is not a mobile quarterback. That is not who he is. Dwayne Haskins, yeah, he's somewhat mobile, but has he proven anything to you as far as you would like to go into the offseason, or he has a legitimate chance to be the starting quarterback for the Steelers going into the 2022 season? I don't think so. So coming from Mike Tomlin's words, he wants a more mobile quarterback, and I don't necessarily see that guy on their current roster right now. To be honest, I think the Steelers have like a good foundation. They have good bones. Obviously, they have one of the best owners and best just organizations as far as running a team in all of football, right? Can't deny that at all. They have one of the best coaches in Mike Tomlin, who I believe, what was the Steelers record this year? Was it
well, they're over 500. I think they ended up 9-7-1 or something like that.
So yeah, I don't believe that Mike Tomlin, since he has been the head coach of the Steelers, has had a losing season. Right? Mike Tomlin is the dude. If he were to be fired or let go or whatever the case, I guarantee you he would be a free agent head coach for about 5 minutes, because every single team, even if they did have a head coach, would really have to consider, maybe unless you're the New England Patriots.
Jared, I'll tell you that. If that happened, fire Kingsbury and hire Tomlin immediately. Like that, yeah. Like that.
That's what I'm saying. Different. Even if you did have a coach, you're going to look at Mike Tomlin because he is that great. So to me, they have a very good defense. They have good weapons, right? And Najee Harris, who's going to be a great running back, in my opinion. He showed that this year in his rookie year. Chase Claypool, even though he's kind of a bonehead and does some dumb things, he's still a very good wide receiver. Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, you know what I mean? So they have pieces there. I think they just need to find that right quarterback, and I think this Steelers team will be right back there. To me, this is not a blow-it-up situation. This is not a start new rebuild. This is you find the right quarterback, you get some better pieces on the offensive line to protect that quarterback, and I think this Pittsburgh Steelers team is going to be right there in contention for the AFC North next year.
Yeah, I think the last couple years, the last few years, but really the last two, Mike Tomlin has just had to deal with the fact that Big Ben was his quarterback. I like him coming out and saying, yeah, I essentially want to run a completely different system, and I don't want to do this shit anymore. I don't want to do it. Like, they
can't take the ball under center.
Yeah, all I can do is win half the games with this stuff. Like, I can't do this anymore. I mean, look at this. Look at this too. Like, you go in and they end up 9-7-1, right? That's one game back of the Raiders and Bengals, who we all thought had like solid ass years. So like, again, it's just because we expect more from this team and organization, and they just didn't do it. But like, yeah, great running back, solid receivers, pretty good offensive line, great defense. All you're missing is a quarterback. So Jared, what I say is go out and get the free agent. Or go get Russell Wilson and trade the fall. I don't think they should draft this year. I don't like this year's draft. If you have to draft and you suck for some reason this year and it doesn't work out, then that's what you do when you go after Bryce Young, or you go after one of the other talented quarterbacks to come out in 2023's NFL draft. I think you go after a free agent. You go for it. You are already a playoff team without a quarterback, essentially. So that's all you need to do. And yeah, who's better at running and getting out of the pocket than Russell Wilson? Literally, maybe nobody.
I'm gonna to end this one. I'm gonna run this saying into the ground, because I know I've said this multiple times on this podcast, but it applies so well here. And this is taking a quote from Bill Belichick. It is better to let a player go a year too early, a year or two too late. And that is the exact scenario with Ben Roethlisberger. He won this team 2 Super Bowls. It's the only team he's ever played for. The loyalty that the organization has to this player specifically is tremendous, and I don't blame them for doing that. But you also have to look at this from a business perspective. Ben Roethlisberger, for the last couple of years, has not been the same dude, right? He has been injured. He has been immobile. He has hindered this entire offense. So he is one of the main reasons why the Steelers have not been able to progress and it's that it's cut Super Bowl again, right? You're going to be city all ass, not in the quarterback. It's that simple. That Pittsburgh should have made the hard decision, made the hard choice of letting him go and starting new. They did not do that, and now they're having to deal with the repercussions.
It's kind of interesting there, Jared. You like completely cut out, but the ending statement you said was, I think, what exactly you said during the statement.
Y'all get what I'm saying.
I think, what you're trying to say is Big Ben was the hindrance of this team, and that everybody kind of ends up struggling. Yeah, it's spot on. Now you mentioned a head coach, okay, and a theory of how to have success in the playoffs. Okay, so let's transition. The team that had the least amount of success in this playoffs was not my Arizona Cardinals, was not my Pittsburgh Steelers. It was the New England Patriots. Okay, they got absolutely slaughtered by the Buffalo Bills. One of the biggest blowouts of the year, and one of the biggest playoff blowouts, realistically, since the Patriots blew out the Chargers like 3 or 4 years ago, and Phillip Rivers. Jared, your thoughts on what the Patriots need to do? Is this one of those scenarios where it's just kind of like my Cardinals with the Rams, where it's like just the wrong opponent in the playoffs? Or do you think there's more structural damage and they need to do something with Mac Jones? What do you think needs to go on here in New England?
I've been pretty clear cut with some of our first topics that we've talked about. This one I'm stumped with, because you got the greatest head coach in NFL history in Bill Belichick, right? You have a good defense. And even though you have a rookie quarterback and you may not have the weapons at receiver or running back that you would expect, this team still finds a way to get the job done and get into the playoffs. So as long as Bill Belichick is there and that management stays in place, it is almost impossible for me to bet against this team. But at the same token, you do need superstars at a certain point. And when you get into the playoffs, your superstars have to shine, right? And so I really don't know. I think Mac Jones could be the guy, right? It's you clearly have to keep him, and hopefully he continues to improve. But their number one receiver was Kendrick Bourne. That's not going to do it, right? They struck out on their former first-round pick, N'Keal Harry, I believe, out of Arizona State. He has not been what they expected of him. So I think this offseason, we always say that football starts in the trenches with the big guys, the offensive line, the defensive line. You got to be able to protect the quarterback and stop the run and all that stuff. The Patriots need to spend a lot of resources on star players on the outside, getting better receivers for Mac Jones to be able to throw the ball to. Because, if Tom Brady were still there, he probably could have made up for some of the deficiencies or lack of talent that this team had. But when you're dealing with a rookie quarterback on the road in literally 0-degree temperatures, I'm sorry, that's a recipe for disaster. So I'm on the fence because I don't really know. This team could blow it up because defensively they do have a lot of older players. But then again, like I said, you've got Bill Belichick at the head, and I think as long as he's there, they're going to make some tweaks and they're going to do some things here and there. But I think once again, we're going to go into next season saying, they probably don't have as good a talent as some other teams do. And I think the Bills are going to be a better talented team than they are. But I can't sit here and count this Patriots team out, not as long as Bill Belichick is there. If and when Bill Belichick retires, in the next year or two, and then they're, stuck with Mac Jones and more or less the same team that they've got right now, then I think if you're a Patriots fan, you can start to push the panic button. But I can't do that just yet.
Yeah, no, I kind of completely agree with you. And here's what I'll say about the Patriots. Like, again, calm down, guys. All right. It's like I know they lost by a lot, but like, here's what they did that was smarter than a lot of other coaches do in these situations. These teams that are pretty good that could start a rookie quarterback, but instead they start a veteran, and maybe he plays for 3 or 4 weeks and he doesn't get. I loved that they played Mac Jones the whole season because it seemed like earlier in the year, Patriots weren't going to be that good, right? And then midway through the season, everybody was literally saying they were going to win the Super Bowl. And then at the end of the season, again, Mac Jones looked like shit. So that's what's going to happen with a rookie quarterback. And then, yeah, like you said, Jared, they have no weapons. Why do you think Mac Jones was good at Alabama? Because he had Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, John Mechie, Jameson. Were like, come on, guys. That's why the guy was good, right? He's a great quarterback, and that's why he went to Alabama, and that's why he was drafted number 10. But, like, he was not going to be Joe Burrow when he came out his first year, right? And even Joe Burrow was solid last year, but the Bengals sucked, okay? And now they potentially could be in the AFC Championship game, right? So it's like, pump the brakes. Yeah, really, they just need to kind of shore up the offensive weapons realistically and just allow Mac Jones to learn from his mistakes. What's the way to, in life, learn about things, right? I kind of just gave it away, but it's by making mistakes and sometimes horrible mistakes, right? That's why I like that Kyler got blown out in the playoffs because now he's going to be like maybe I'm not as good as I think. Like I need to really work harder this offseason because I can't get embarrassed in Los Angeles like that again. I can't embarrass Nick
But I hope so.
in front of his friends and family again for the second time this year. Can't do that, right? So Mac Jones, he's probably like, I'm literally with the best organization in NFL history, and am the successor for Tom Brady and have the best coach, and I lost by 40 in the playoffs. Like, it can't get much worse than that. So all there is up, right? So I think Patriots are fine. They need to go at it with the way they're going at it. Let Mac Jones make his mistakes. Now, if by next year he still is really not improved, that's where maybe you work it. But like he's a rookie. He had his ups and downs this year, and it just so happened that at the end of the year, the Patriots just started kind of looking not very good, and teams started to figure them out. And that's the way it goes, and they got a big win on Monday Night Football where they ran the ball and got lucky because the weather was horrible. And I'm saying they might not even make the playoffs if they don't win that game. So it's pump the brakes for the Patriots. I think they'll be fine. But definitely you need to make an effort in the offseason. Like you made a big effort this last season. Do the right things, but do not just keep Mac Jones with, like I said, Kendrick Bourne and N'Keal Harry and all those other guys that can't even names, don't even know who they are, right? So yeah, lots to talk about there. All right, moving on. Last two teams in the playoffs that were eliminated: Raiders and Eagles. I don't think a lot of people thought these teams would advance far in the playoffs. The rest of these teams, like we're talking about, we maybe thought could actually advance to the second or maybe third round of the playoffs. With the Raiders, Jared, really quickly, what did they need to do with head coach? I already heard some dumb rumor that like Jim Harbaugh would take the job, all this stuff. The way their cultures worked out the last couple of years, and with what happened last season, who would you like to see take over the Las Vegas Raiders organization as their head coach?
Well, this one's interesting too because they just earlier this week fired their GM Mike Mayock, who had been there for 3 seasons. I believe he came on the same year that they hired John Gruden. They both gave them the ownership gave both Mike Mayock and John Gruden these crazy long contracts. They were going to be there together. It was going to be a tandem team, right? Obviously, John Gruden is gone, and now Mike Mayock gets the boot. So organizationally, I think they need to find out who their GM is first before they can find a head coach. unless they truly feel great about Rick Bisaccia, who's been their interim coach. He was the special teams coach before having to take over for John Gruden. I think he has proven that he at least deserves an interview, which he is getting. I'm not sure if it already is completed or if it's happening this week. He is getting an interview, and I think that is much deserved. Everything that this team has gone through this year, the Henry Ruggs, right? Obviously the John Gruden, and then having one or two other players also arrested, and just so many off the field things for Rick Bisaccia to have to be able to keep this team in contact to the playoffs, even though they lost, to me is a successful season for them already. So if they want to keep Rick there and take that interim tag off, I'm totally okay with that. If not, I think they need to find a GM first that can then go out and pick his guy, right? Because if you don't have the GM and the head coach working together, more than likely your team is not going to have success, from whether it's, recruiting in free agency to draft picks to team strategy, all of that stuff. You have to have those guys, the leadership starting at the top, working in tandem, and that's how you have better success. So that would be the thing that I would look for the most.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Obviously, with Mike Mayock and John Gruden kind of running the show, realistically, John Gruden, they didn't draft very well. They picked up odd free agents, and it showed. Like, again, they were very average most of the years with John Gruden, and even with Rich Bisaccia, every game was coming down to the wire. And even that last game against the Bengals, we all knew the Raiders would have a chance at the end of that game. It was just, are they actually going to win? And they end up getting very, very close as you can get, but ultimately losing. So, yeah, I agree with you on that. I think they should hire GM. But I really do think they need to hire more of a culture guy, right? Like a guy that is maybe not the best X's and O's guys. Like, don't go hire some offensive coordinator or something like that from somebody. Hire maybe a Brian Flores or a Mike Tomlin type, right? That builds a culture more than they build like a successful offense or successful defense, right? So I think they need to go with that when they hire head coach. The GM, go hire some analytics guy. Like, go hire some guy to fix this roster, because this roster kind of sucks. And it's pretty impressive they made the playoffs and almost advanced to the second round. But I think they need to change that Raiders culture from what it's been the last couple of years, because I've personally talked to people that used to be in that organization, and they said, what you think about the Raiders is what they are. It's a joke. It's not nice looking. And moving to Vegas now, everything looks great. So just fix that culture for sure. And the Eagles, Jared, I think we all thought they'd lose this game. We didn't have high hopes for them at the beginning of the season. They already announced that Jalen Hurts, of course, is going to be the guy. But what do you think they need to do in this offseason to become, really competitive with the Cowboys potentially in the NFC West or in the NFC East, and really become a legitimate playoff contender to maybe win a playoff game next year?
Well, if you're Jalen Hurts, that's music to your ears, right? I think he's a hard worker in the offseason, but to know that he's going to go on and that's going to be his job, I think that's great. Organizationally, I think that was a bad move, because to me, Jalen Hurts has proven all year long, even though he has been banged up and he has had some injuries, so he hasn't been completely healthy. But when he is on the field, I think he leaves too much meat on the bone. If you try to, pick up my drift here, as in he's not making the proper reads enough, and he's not distributing the ball to his players and making the right plays. And that was clearly shown in the game against Tampa Bay. Not to say that if he played a perfect ball game, the Eagles would have won, but I think that would have been a way more competitive game if Jalen Hurts was able to find his receivers and actually execute the plays that were being called. So to me, if I'm the Eagles, I don't know how you can automatically say a week after you get eliminated that Jalen Hurts is going to be your starter going into next year. Yeah. I think you have to do your due diligence in the offseason and look at the free agents, and also go into this draft and say, okay, is there anyone that we, like that we can potentially bring in to be our future? Because I don't think there's any certainty, in my opinion, that Jalen Hurts is the Eagles' future. Now, as a Cowboys fan, I would love that, because yes, Jalen Hurts is very mobile. He can extend plays, and I think he can become a good quarterback, like a top 15, top 20. But I don't see many scenarios where Jalen Hurts improves and becomes a top 10 quarterback in the National Football League. So like I said, from an organizational standpoint, I think that was a dumb move on the Eagles' part. There's zero reason for you guys to come out right now and name your starting quarterback for next year when that's over 6 months away. Like, come out and say, we had a successful year, whatever you want to say. We came up short, blah, blah, blah. We're going to go into this offseason and everyone's getting evaluated. Like, that would be a more proper organizational move. But no, they had to come out and already say that Jalen Hurts is the guy. And like I said, I think, that just was not not the right move. As a Cowboys fan, I love it. If you're an Eagles fan, you're probably shaking your head.
Jared, I have to disagree with you on this too, because I think this is similar to the Cardinals situation where like a lot of teams did not expect them to make the playoffs. And a lot of teams thought they wouldn't even be a very good team at all, right? Or middle of the pack. I think the Eagles, the expectation was literally some of the worst. I mean, we probably could go back to our NFL prediction show for the season and be like, I think we probably had them in like the top 5 of the draft, right? So like, I disagree with you. I think you do give Jalen Hurts one more trial run. And I think that's why they announced him early as the starter. And I think they just, shore up that defense a little bit, or maybe a lot of it, right? Like that's where I'd put my main focus, right? You have the Fletcher Coxes, you have these other guys, but like you need to fix that defense. And, give Jalen Hurts a couple more weapons, right, on offense. Do what the Patriots need to do with Mac Jones. It's obviously not the same thing. The Patriots have a better roster. But I disagree with you. I think you give one more trial run with Jalen Hurts. I think they found the right coach in Nick Sirianni, right? That guy ended up being great. He doesn't know how to talk to the media, but he knows how to coach.
Sirianni.
Yeah, Sirianni, excuse me. I was thinking of breakfast. But so, I disagree with you. I think giving Jalen Hurts one more ride as quarterback is absolutely what you need to do. It's the same, I think, with the Cardinals and Kyler Murray and the head coach and all that stuff. Like, you had a year where you beat expectations. Now you have to build on that. And the Eagles can't not make the playoffs next year. They have to try to make the playoffs and win a playoff game or two. It's hard. It's the NFL. But still, you're in one of the easier divisions. Even the Cowboys clearly – are beatable, right? So it's not like you have that Tampa Bay or that, Buffalo or that, Chiefs in your division that you always do. Like, Cowboys aren't the best division leader, realistically, and all those other teams are awful.
All right. We're done with the Cowboy slander here, okay? I'm like I said, it's still an open wound. Okay, sure. It's still very much, alive and well, and I'm still struggling over here. So let's take it easy there. I do have to say, in a serious note, that I don't trust currently constructed Eagles scouting department to go out and really find that much talent when they had an opportunity to draft Justin Jefferson, and they ended up passing on him to take Jalen Reagor. So, like I said, yes, you are 100% right. The Eagles do need to get more talent on the outside, especially after trading away Jalen Hurts. But I don't necessarily trust that the Eagles are going to do that because they potentially had an all-pro, an all-star, and Justin Jefferson falling to their lap. And they're like, nah, we're good. We're not going to take him who, lit up, the entire college football year on the national championship. We're going to take a guy named Jalen Reagor instead. Look how that turned out. Yeah,
you're right. Jalen Reagor's been the MVP for the last couple of years. It's obviously I get what you're saying. I do like Nick Sirianni, right, as that coach. But you make a good point. All right, we don't have a lot of time left in this podcast, so we're gonna, and this is probably what it's going to be like for the rest of the playoffs. Realistically, we're not going to be previewing as many of these games because we're going to be talking about these teams a lot every week. So we're going to go quickly through this, pretty much realistically just our predictions for the second round, the divisional round of the playoffs. There's only 4 games to talk about, and we'll just get into it. We'll go in chronological order. We got Bengals and Titans on Saturday at 1:30 Pacific. The Bengals get the big win over the Raiders, right? They're having a magical year, but they run into a buzzsaw in the Tennessee Titans, the number 1 seed, a team that played well even without their best player, and that best player apparently is coming back, right? Like he practiced. But is it, Jared, is it for sure that Derek?
Oh, he's playing.
He's playing, okay.
He's playing.
I want to make sure. I assumed he was playing, and then I saw that report last week that he practiced. That's good. It was like, I thought he was just coming back. Like, I thought he was good. So, I'll give my prediction on this first. I'll say this, okay, about the Tennessee Titans. I think they're coming into this as the number one seed, thinking they are going to run over the Bengals or whoever they were going to play in the first round, literally and figuratively, and that, they have a matchup potentially with the Chiefs and Bills in the next round, okay? The line on this game is Titans minus 3.5, okay? First of all, I'd take that plus 3.5 in Cincinnati. And I absolutely wouldn't be surprised if Joe Burrow and the boys go into Tennessee, an environment that's not like known to be one of the best in the NFL, and beat the Tennessee Titans. Because if Derrick Henry isn't 100%, which most likely he isn't, I think he's stoppable. You know what I'm saying? And then after, I know they have Julio Jones. I know they have A.J. Brown. I don't trust Ryan Tannehill. Okay, I actually literally would trust Joe Burrow over Ryan Tannehill. And, I could see the Bengals winning this ball game. And you know what I'll do, Jared? I'm going to pick the Bengals to win this ball game, okay? I bet the plus 3.5, so just in case they lose by 3, right? But maybe at those smaller bet on them to win the game as well. I'm going to go with the Bengals. Very, very close. Could go either way. I'll go with Cincinnati. Screw it. First game of the playoffs for the divisional round is going to be an upset from Cincinnati.
I like that. And I'm going to be a lot more clear. Bengals are going to win this game.
Wow. Okay, so you're just going Bengals.
Earlier on this show, what did I say earlier on this show about it's not about the talent going into the playoffs. It's about how your team is playing going in. And right now, the Cincinnati Bengals are one of the hottest teams in the entire league. Yes, and I'm just going to take it a step further. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase is now like a top 2, top 3 quarterback wide receiver duo, tandem, whatever you want to call it. Those two are magical, right? They have that connection from LSU. It's carried right over into their first season together here. Like, Jamar Chase is simply a monster, right? Joe Mixon has run the ball very well. You've also got T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, as your other complementary receivers. So if Joe Burrow continues to play at the pace that he's playing right now, I don't see how this Tennessee Titans defense can stop the Bengals offense. Now, if you're Tennessee, right, you got to look on this side. You've gotten a week off, so your players have gotten a rest. You've got home field advantage, and you've got your boy Derrick King Henry coming back. But like you mentioned, I don't think he's going to be 100% either. I don't think his stamina is going to be there as well, because when he is on the field, he literally plays over 95% of the snaps. Like, the dude does not come off the field. And coming back in your first game after injuring your foot, right? It's not like he's got like an arm or an upper body injury where he had a better chance to keep his stamina while he was rehabbing. He hasn't, I guarantee there's no way that he's going to have the same stamina that he had coming into the season. So I think he probably plays more 60, 70% of the snaps. And I just, like I said, I think the Bengals right now are too hot. They are playing too well. And I think it's a closer game. I say the Bengals win by a touchdown. But yes, I'm clearly going with the Bengals. I don't have any hesitation saying that.
I love it. I thought you were going to say Titans all the way. All right. 49ers at Green Bay. Green Bay coming off a bye, right? 49ers coming off a big win, an impressive win. Jared, will the Niners be able to do what they did against the Cowboys in Green Bay, or is this the end of the road for San Francisco?
I'm gonna speak both with my heart and with my head. I'm gonna start with my heart. My heart says hell no. My heart says Aaron Rodgers is gonna completely destroy them. The Packers and the 49ers already played this year. I believe it was in week 3. That game was in San Francisco, and the Packers won on the last second field goal by Mason Crosby. So, these teams do have some history. They know each other a little bit. But talking with my head, the 49ers have a recipe for success, and we've already gone through it. It's running the football, keeping the opposing quarterback and offense off the field, and having a good defense. Now, I will say Nick Bosa is in concussion protocol from the game against Dallas, and I'm not sure if he's been cleared yet. I'm assuming he will be, but it's still not 100% that he will play. Also, Fred Warner, their star all-pro linebacker, hurt his ankle really bad, was not able to come back into the game against Dallas. I don't believe he's practiced all week either. So two of their best players on defense are banged up and not at 100%. Obviously, when you're going up against Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, and that offense, you need all cylinders clicking. So I realistically don't see any way that the 49ers win this game. I'm sorry, I take that back. I need to rephrase that. The Packers are going to win this game. There's a way for the 49ers to do it. I just don't think that they will be successful. Last thing I will say before I hand it off to you, Jimmy Garoppolo has never started a game in under 40-degree weather. The weather at kickoff is supposed to be near zero. So just saying, Jimmy G plays in San Francisco, mainly nice weather, never played in these temperatures before. That's going to be a factor.
It's the end of the road for the San Francisco 49ers, 100%. Bet that -5.5. Packers are winning this game easy by a touchdown, probably more. Okay, this is the first round the Packers are playing. Okay, like you said, the 49ers went, knock them out, drag them out brawl with Dallas last week. Although they were kind of knocking out Dallas in the first half, Dallas came back. Like, clearly their two best players got hurt in that game. I think Fred Warner's good. I think he tweeted out that he's going to play. Maybe not the same player, but he's not going to play. And, yeah, you hope Bosa can obviously see clear concussion protocol, but it ain't matter. It doesn't matter. Packers will win this game. They're the best team in the NFL right now. There's no reason to think that they won't go in the first round of the playoffs against a team that, again, had 9 wins the whole season, and they're not going to win that game at home. Come on. Aaron Rodgers doesn't give a shit anymore, too. So it's a little different. I don't think he cares about the pressure, and that's tough for anybody playing this Packers team, whether it's an AFC team in the Super Bowl or it's the Rams and Buccaneers next week. Because I got this an easy win for Green Bay. No way am I picking Jimmy Garoppolo again over Aaron Rodgers. It's not the same as it was when they blew him out in the AFC Championship game and when they've beaten him in the past. It's not the same. This team's a little bit worse. And Jimmy G's clearly showed that he's not great. And Jimmy G almost blew that game against the Cowboys, too. Like, that was such an easy win, realistically, for San Francisco if they have a great quarterback. And he still almost blew that. So, yeah, Packers all the way. All right. I'll give credit to the NFL on this. They're literally, chronologically, these games get better and better as the weekend goes on. The Sunday opener at 12 o'clock
for sure.
is Los Angeles versus Tampa Bay. Okay, I'll go first on this one. Okay, I said it last week. I said that the culture in Tampa Bay right now is a little off, right? Anybody can go in and beat the Philadelphia Eagles. But can you, with all the stuff that's gone on this season, all the controversy, all the injuries, can you beat a team like the Los Angeles Rams coming off a big win? Can you beat the Green Bay Packers, right? I'm going to go no. I'm going the Rams in this game. I think the Rams are hot. They've figured out how to use Odell Beckham Jr. and their running game. If you want, obviously that Cardinals game, what they essentially did to us was they said, okay, well, we know we can run on you, so we're going to run the ball down your throat. And then when we pass, we're going to be able to stop, or we're going to be able to throw people open, even if you double cover Cooper Kupp. Because Cooper Kupp essentially had no action in that game against us, and we still lost by like 20. So it was Odell Beckham Jr., and Odell is playing well, and he's getting excited, right? And he's not bitching, and his dad's not complaining about the quarterback anymore, okay? I like the Rams in this game, okay, a lot. And I think this is going to be Rams leading almost the whole time and Brady coming back. I really think the Rams are in this. I think it's the end of the line for the Buccaneers this season. Not the end of the line of, Tom Brady or anything. But I just think it's not their year. You won the Super Bowl last year. You took advantage of all the COVID stands. I think it will be – I think it's going to be Rams this weekend. What do you think, Jared?
This one's tough because, just like when I was talking earlier about Bill Belichick and the Patriots, like you just can't ever count them out. Just like I can never count out Tom Brady, right? Even though he doesn't have some of his weapons, obviously Antonio Brown is not there anymore. Chris Godwin has that torn ACL, and so basically he's left with only one of his top 3 receivers, and Mike Evans, who is a great receiver, but still it's him and Gronk, right? So, and yeah, when you're going up against a Philadelphia team, you can play without your, two of your top three best receivers. You can play without Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones, your top two running backs. A big key for this game for the Bucs is going to be Tristan Wirfs, their tackle. If he does not play, and Aaron Donald and Von Miller and those boys get to go up against backup tackle, it might be a long day for Tom Brady. Now, Tom Brady obviously is very good at getting the ball out quickly, not letting the defense get to him. But still, that to me is going to be a big key, whether or not Tom Brady has Tristan Wirfs there at one of those tackle spots to help protect him. The Rams right now, I think, are playing better ball. And so I'm going to go with you as well. I think the Rams will find a way to win this game. Here's going to be a key matchup. Because the Bucs are down at receiver and Mike Evans is their only true threat on the outside, the Rams have a couple different options here. Obviously, Jalen Ramsey, one of the best corners in all of the NFL. You can either match Jalen Ramsey up with Mike Evans wherever he goes on the field and say, all right, you got him one-on-one. We know that half that side is going to be locked up. Or you can put Jalen Ramsey on the number 2 corner, and you can double team Mike Evans with your second corner and with another safety. I heard Deion Sanders do this when he was with the Dallas Cowboys, and I think he did it when he was with the 49ers as well. When they got into playoff games or when there were certain matchups, like when he would go up against Jerry Rice or another great receiver, a lot of times they would actually put Deion Sanders on the second best receiver and double team the star player. So that way you're basically saying, okay, 2 of our guys against 1, majority of the time we should be able to negate that. And then you've got your actual best corner on the second best receiver. So I think the Buccaneers defensively, the Rams defensively have a couple different ways of playing this. And either way, whichever way they choose to go, I just think somehow, some way the Rams are going to find a way to get it done. You're right. Odell Beckham seems to be a little more comfortable in the system. Cooper Kupp is playing like the best receiver in all of the NFL. Cam Akers is back amazingly, only 5-6 months after that torn Achilles. Unreal, unheard of. I know that guys come back a lot quicker than they used to from major injuries, like torn ACLs and that type of thing. But literally 5 to 6 months, that's an unreal timeline to come back. So I think the Rams are playing well right now. And I think they advance to the NFC Championship.
Yeah, I like it. All right, moving on. Last game of the weekend, and this is, you could almost call this the Super Bowl in some ways. Bills versus Chiefs. What a matchup after these two teams' end of their seasons and their last games. Chiefs blew out the Steelers, didn't care about their defense, and the Bills, we know what they did to the Patriots. Jared, you got first crack on this one. Who wins this, and how far does the points go over in this game, realistically?
So, listen, this you're right. You mentioned in chronological order, these games get better and better and better. I think this is like the dessert. This is the cherry on top. This will be the best game played of all 4 so far. I mean, going back to last year when the Chiefs beat the Bills, and that kind of famous picture now of Stephon Diggs being the last Bills player off the field. He's just sitting there with his hands on his hips, watching the Chiefs celebrate. And he even came out and said, "Yeah, I wanted to get a clear picture of that." That kind of helped motivate him. So now that they have a chance to go back to Kansas City and get that revenge, I think that's good. That's obviously going to be a huge motivating factor right there. Head coach Sean McDermott doesn't even have to say anything. That's motivation right there. But the Chiefs, man, they look like the Chiefs right now, right? We started this season, the first half of the season, going, is something wrong with Patrick Mahomes? We knew that there was something wrong with the defense. They were not playing well. Guess what? Like I said, again, the momentum going into the playoffs, the Chiefs clearly have that right now, right? And so I can't go against them. As good as the Bills are playing, and they have a ton of weapons, obviously Josh Allen is very great, almost elite. I cannot go against this Chiefs team right now. Listen, when the Chiefs start doing those trick plays, when Travis Kelce is taking the ball from under center, and you've got Patrick Mahomes out wide at receiver, and then you got those shovel passes, and they're doing all these crazy trick plays. A lot of times when those trick plays happen, that tells me that a team is scared against their opponent. But when the Chiefs literally do it 4 or 5 times in the game, they're saying, we know that our opponent knows we're going to do it, and we're still going to run it, right? It's like basically lining up in a jumbo formation and saying, we know that the defense knows we're going to run the ball, and we're still going to do it anyway. Like, I think the Chiefs are clicking on all cylinders right now, and I don't see how they are stopped. The Bills may be able to contain them for a quarter. There ain't no way you're stopping this Chiefs team currently constructed for 4 quarters. Chiefs move on to the AFC Championship.
I disagree, Jared. I think the Bills are at that point right now in their rebuild, in whatever you want to call it, in their culture, that they're primed for a Super Bowl run. And I think after what they did last week, literally not scoring a touchdown, they scored a touchdown on every single drive, and didn't punt and didn't kick a field goal. I think that they're going to go into Kansas City, who's had a topsy-turvy year. They haven't looked like the Chiefs all year. I got the Bills. I think Josh Allen is determined to get to the Super Bowl and potentially win it. I think the Bills right now are my Super Bowl favorites. Realistically, after after the way they ended the season, the number 1 defense, and the way they played against Bill Belichick and the Patriots last week, I can't go against them the rest of this playoff. So hopefully I'm not wrong, and we're not sitting here next week, and I'm not trying to explain myself that now I have a third Super Bowl favorite in 3 weeks. It was the Cardinals, and there was the Bills, right? But I'm going Bills. I'm very confident on this. If you're betting, I would bet the over on this game. The line is like -1.5 Kansas City. Like, you're really just to pick them, essentially. I'd bet the over, so maybe you have fun. You don't cheer for either team. But, yeah, I got the Bills. I think it's going to be on Allen's feet, and he's going to run the ball. And I just think it's the Bills' year this year. I think it's the Bills' year. Go ahead, Jared.
No, I was going to say, listen, it's going to be a great game. It hopefully will live up to the hype, and I can see why you're arguing for the Bills.
Sure.
Listen, I just can't pick against the Chiefs. But I will not be surprised if the Bills win. The Chiefs are just playing like the Chiefs that we've come to know for the last couple of years. I just don't know how you go against them.
So, yeah, Jared, that was actually the only game we disagreed on, which is interesting. I think so that will be the game, right? It'll be last Sunday. We'll watch all the other games, see if we were right, and we'll see who's right. Interesting stats, because we're going to end the podcast right now, but, interesting stats. So at one point, from this last weekend, at one point, Odell Beckham Jr. had more passing yards than Kyler against the Cardinals. He had that 40-yard pass, I believe it was the Cooper Cup. That was an interesting stat. Like I mentioned, the Bills literally had perfection, besides a couple missed extra points and 2-point conversions. They had perfection on all their drives. And let me mention this too. We have to mention this. Guys, the officiating needs to be better in the NFL playoffs this next weekend. We can't have what we had in the Bengals-Raiders game, in the Cowboys game. There were some awful calls in the Rams-Cardinals game that went against both teams, some reviews that were complete wastes of time. The refereeing needs to be better, okay? And we'll talk about it more if it's an actual issue next week. But we'll give it hope. And I just want to mention that really quickly, Jared. We noticed the officiating was bad, and it's not cool.
I tweeted this out. I believe it was Monday, right, the day after all the games. The NFL needs to make every single official a full-time employee. It's absolute bullshit.
Every year you say
that these officials are not full-time employees. It's stupid. Like, you're asking the number 1 most profitable sport, multi-billion-dollar industry in all of North America, right? The coaches are year-round, players are year-round. You expect to put the best product on the field. You hear Roger Goodell and everyone from the NFL say that all the time. We want to put the best product on the field. We want to blah, 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 right? Well, if you want to put the best product on the field, that includes the referees. They are a part of the game, right? Many people may not want to think that, but they are. And the fact that they are not full-time employees, which means in the offseason, a lot of them are either have another job, or if they make enough money, they're just chilling. They are not obligated to, stay in shape, number 1, and continue to look at film and improve and get better at their craft. They're full-time employees. They would be obligated to do all of those things, or else they will not have a job anymore. So to me, it is, one of those things where it's like, I'm not the smartest dude in the world, man, but I look at some of these CEOs and big business people and Roger Goodell and the people that run the NFL, and I say, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, this is simple freaking math. Like, this is, I don't get why this one is so difficult to fork out some extra millions of dollars to put a better product on the field.
Yeah, I agree.
It's very simple to me.
No, it is. And again, it just needs to get better. And it ruined a couple games. I mean, realistically, the Bengals maybe don't win that game if they don't call they don't blow the whistle and they make that call on a touchdown. Obviously the Cowboys literally might have won the game. They lost a chance to win the game. So it's just
get it together, NFL.
All right, we are done. We will be back next week, of course, talking about the winners of the divisional round and previewing the championship games in the NFC and AFC, and hopefully not talking about officiating for this Cover 2 podcast. We are done. I am Nick Nenad.
And I'm Jared Smith.
And we'll see you guys next week.